Why is it that even the smartest people can sometimes miss the obvious? I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want to dive into it in this question. I have some insights that I think you'll find really, really useful. So, whether you consider yourself a smart person or not, there are things that are right in front of you that are very beneficial that you miss and that I miss every single day. So is there anything we can do about that, and why does it happen? That's what I want to talk about in this video. In order to do that, I want to tell you a story. So stay with me because the story has some meaning. There was actually a guy who decided to do his doctoral research on this question of why college students fall asleep in class. Now, that's not the main point, the college students falling asleep in class. You'll see where this is going. This is tied to why smart people miss obvious things. But stay with me for the story. Because this guy was doing a study on why college students fall asleep in class. So how do you do a study like that? Well, you have to find college students who fall asleep in class and study them in some way. So he did that, and he found a population of college students who are known to regularly fall asleep in class. And then he conducted these really deep dive interviews with them. And he conducted a method of study where you do your interviews and you transcribe them and you study the words and you look for phrases and what we call meaning statements and other things like that. And along the way then, as you go through multiple interviews, you begin to notice some patterns and you develop a sort of a rough draft, a working theory. And then you interview more people and you add more kind of data to your question, to your exploration. And you see if your working theory holds up. And if it holds up, then you kind of continue and you test your theory with the new interviews. If it falls flat, though, and the theory does not explain the additional people, then you have to let go of it and look for a better theory. And this is actually a method of research. It's called grounded theory. And you can even use it a little bit informally. You don't have to be some academic or anything like that to find it useful. But in this study, this is what he did. And he did interview after interview after interview until he came up with the answer to why college students fall asleep in class. And it was 2 words. Can you guess what they are? Perceived meaninglessness. Yes, he earned his doctorate by discovering that people fall asleep when they experience perceived meaninglessness. But notice that they didn't fall asleep consistently because they were tired or they were sick or they stayed up playing video games too late the night before or something like that. They fell asleep. The students who seemed to fall asleep the most in classes were the ones who didn't see real meaning or purpose or value in that particular class. So notice that it didn't actually have to do with the professor. If the professor was boring or not, that didn't matter. If it was a boring professor, but the students saw the class as really meaningful or important for them, then they would stay awake, they would stay alert. You can go to medical schools, for example. I've actually been to some medical schools where the teaching wasn't very good. The professor was incredibly boring, but it was very important content if you wanted to be a doctor and if you wanted to pass medical school. And so the students were focused, they were engaged, they were motivated, nobody was falling asleep, and they were on top of it because they saw meaning in the content, even if the container for the content wasn't very pretty in that case. So what does this have to do with the question about why smart people miss what's obvious? Well, I'm going to suggest that this is a similar reason sometimes. It's not the only reason, but it sometimes happens where we don't notice things because they're not important to us. And I'm going to give you another reason why we don't notice things too. But sometimes we don't notice things because they're just not a priority for us, not a part of our core values or our core beliefs or something like that. And so we don't see it and we don't notice it. Another reason why we don't notice things, though, sometimes can be because we lack the background knowledge to see things. One of the aspects of being an expert at something, the more you spend time doing something, the better you get at it, the more expertise you develop. So if you are a world-class musician, maybe a classical musician, you can hear a piece of classical music and you can pull out each instrument and you can understand in your mind what's happening in the piece of music and what makes the music beautiful or not, or whether they're performing it well or poorly and other things like that. And you will be able to notice many more details than a novice. And that's true in many areas. If you are a world-class athlete in a particular area, say you're watching a football game and you're sitting down, there are two people watching a football game and one who doesn't know anything about football and another one does, that the one who knows football well will see things happening on the field that the person next to them, they just don't understand it. They don't pay attention to it because they don't have that nuance. Or for me, I'm not very good with cars. You lift up a hood and my car isn't working and I look at the engine, it's just a bunch of parts in there. I'm not quite sure what they do, and so I don't even know where to start to try to troubleshoot or problem solve the path. By the way, as a quick aside, I'm trying to do something about that. I'd like to learn a little bit more about cars, so maybe I'll do that. But you get my point here. So smart people aren't smart in everything, and smart people aren't interested in everything. And that's why we sometimes miss really obvious and important things. So the question that we can sometimes ask ourselves to try to get past this so that we can begin to notice the obvious is, the first one is, do I have the kind of knowledge or expertise necessary to notice these important nuances? And if I don't, is there someone that I can bring alongside me who can see some things that I might miss? Maybe they have expertise that I have, or if I have too much expertise and I need someone to maybe look at it with fresh eyes, I can bring them on board and they can help me out. And that can really help. Just that simple kind of shift or adjustment can help us see things and discover things that we might have missed otherwise. And then the other thing that we can do if we really want to be effective at trying to notice things that aren't obvious is we can find other people who are interested when we're not. Or we can begin to manufacture interest in something where it doesn't exist. We can choose to be interested in things. I remember years ago, I was in a class, I was taking a research class at a graduate program, and a professor made a comment about me that they said that they thought that I could spend my whole life studying toll booths and be happy. And their point with that was that for some reason, I am really easily curious about things. For some reason, I can pick almost anything and choose to be interested in it. In fact, I've sometimes told people that I don't think that I've been bored in 40 years. Honestly, and I can honestly say that. I don't think I've experienced boredom. There's so much going on in my mind, so many things to be interested in. I can be in an empty room and be intrigued by the idea or the concept of emptiness. And so you can actually choose to have interest. You can choose to be curious. You can take a posture of curiosity. And when you take a posture of curiosity, that means you're trying to notice things. You're looking around. So pretend like you're a child walking into something for the first time and have that wow moment of like, wow, look at this, look at that, and looking around. And if you take a little bit of that posture, it's not going to necessarily help you notice everything, but maybe you'll notice the big, important, and obvious things that you might have missed otherwise. I hope you find these useful. I look forward to your comments.